Thank you, Macarena. Good morning, everyone. Let me share my screen. This one. Okay. So for today, we are going to be reviewing data management settings in CRM. The idea is that we are going to be presenting some theoretical or functional explanation, and immediately we are going to be reviewing that directly in the CRM. So probably the best way to review that is going directly in the CRM. So for today, I'm going to be doing a small introduction and just to let you know where is the topic that we are going to be discussing, and after that we are going to be just going directly in the functionalities. I'm going to talk about the duplicate detection. Let me just put this like this. Okay. I'm going to talk about duplicate detection, bulk record deletion, and data management, data map, sorry, imports, in place for data import, and field translations. That's I mean, those are the topics that we are going to be covering today. Um, as a small introduction, so the idea of this presentation is I'll let you know what are the data management administration options that you have, and mention some of the important things that probably you need to know or that you need to understand before start configuring this. And additionally, some elements that are important because in the standard CRM or in the basic functionality, you are not going to see many of the elements that probably are available here. So that's why I wanted to mention most of them. Okay. Um, to start or to go to this functionality on the CRM, let me show you here. On the CRM, you could start just clicking here in advanced settings. And when you click there, you are going to be just directly here. You could come here to data management. And after that, you are going to be in the same screen that I have in the PowerPoint. Okay, that's the first thing, how to get there. The second thing is duplicate detections. So basically in the CRM there are three different options or three different configurations that you could do and that are related with data with duplicate detection. Basically the first one is going to be duplicate detection settings. And in this option you could activate or deactivate the detection. You could define what are going to be the triggers or the actions that are going to define the initiation of the process. So I'm going to be explaining that directly in the system as well. Duplicate detection jobs, you could define some recurrent processes in the system just to review constantly the information, just to validate that the information is correct. So you could configure your own detection jobs. I'm going to be explaining you how to do it directly in the system as well. And after that, you need to define, I mean, this is not in this order um, fully, but I mean, the third one is going to be duplicate detection rules. On this functionality, you could configure what are the criteria that you want to use to validate the information, to detect the duplication. So let's review this directly in the CRM before pass to the next topic. So to come here, you could come here and enter the duplicate detection settings, duplicate detection jobs, or duplicate detection roles. My suggestion probably is going to be start with this one, with duplicate detection settings. When you click in this option, you will see this is a basic configuration, but if you don't do this configuration, the system is not going to be detected duplicates. By default, it's something that is turned on, but it's important to validate what are the triggers that probably you could have. As probably you could see here, let me try to make it bigger. You could enable or disable the duplicate detection. By default is enabled. But additionally, you could define the triggers that you want to use or the specific situations where you want to define if there is any duplication or not. So you could define here when a record is created or adapted, you could activate a trigger. I mean, you could activate the duplicate detection when a record is created or updated. When Microsoft for Outlook goes from offline to online, what it means is that you could work offline and you could work directly in your Outlook. But as soon as you have connection, the system is going to try to sync the information. So you could define that at that moment the system should activate a duplicate detection or not. So you could define that here if you want use it or not. My suggestion is use it, of course. And the next one or the last one is going to be during data input. So if you are input information from an Excel file or a CSV, it's a good idea to activate data duplication because if not, probably you are going to be creating additional information without any control. So it's better try to have all of them activated, okay, or active. Sorry. So that's the first option. The second one, and basically I want to jump to duplicate detection rule because I think that is first than this one. So this option is going to be duplicate detection rules. So let's enter here. By default, the CRM includes a lot of rules. Basically, probably is going to have like 15 or 20 or something like that. So by default, the CRM is going to include some detection rules that the system suggests, and by default are active. You could define if you want to deactivate them or not. By default, for example, you could see here the entity that is going to be related to. For example, in account, it's telling you that it's going to try detection. Is going to try to detect based on the website, based on the phone number, and based on the email. So by default, the system is going to try to detect applications based on this information. You could activate or deactivate this, I mean publish or unpublish this. And additionally, you could create your own. So for example, in my case, I defined that for accounts. I want to have an additional detection rule based on the account name. Okay, so you just need to click on new. And when you click on new, you need to define the rule name, of course. You could define here a description if you want it. You could define here the entity that you want to use to validate, that in this case is going to be account. And, and additionally, you could define here the specific criteria that you want to use. For example, in my case, I define that is going to be the account name and is going to try to validate if there is an exact match. And if the system identify that, it's going to tell you that probably there is an account that already exists. So it is really useful because you could define your own detection rules. It's something that you could do just with configuration. You could create alternative keys directly in the entities, but that's something that you need to customize. So in this moment, I think that it's better try to use the detection rules and try to configure it by yourself. Okay, the same way there is some detection rules on contacts, some other in leads, and some other in social profile. So there are just 10 rules by default, but you could create your own as you need. Okay. The next option here is going to be the duplicate detection jobs. That this functionality allows you to configure some validations that probably you want to do every day or every week or something like that. So you could define how often do you want to use or how often do you want to do that validation. And after that, the system is going to provide you the information that you require. So you just need to click here on duplicate detection jobs and click on new. This functionality sometimes takes time because it's not something that you are using frequently. So that's why sometimes takes a little. I hope. Okay. So here is going to explain you what is the process. Basically, you need to define entity. You need to define a subset of records or all of the records as you need. And after that, you could define the specific scheduling and notification options. So let's create one, or at least go to the last step. The first thing that the system is going to show you here is going to be the entity selection. So you need to define what's the entity that you want to use for this job. Probably it could be account or contacts or leads or whatever. If you are receiving information from different systems, if you are receiving leads from different systems, so probably it's going to be a good idea. Try to do that validation on the leads. So let's do that in account. So if you enter here, you could find here the group of information that you want to use. For example, let's say that I want to validate just the accounts that were modified on let's say last 7 days or something like that. I mean, you could find here the criteria that you want to use, and after that you just need to click on next. And here you could define the name of the duplicate detection job that you want. My suggestion always is create with the name that after you could identify what is that. Because if not, if you leave it like this, you're not going to know what exactly the process is doing. You could find here where the process is going to be running. So let's say that is going to be running. My suggestion is try to run this at night. So for example, 11 p.m. or something like that. You could define how often do you want to execute the process. If the number that you want is not in the list, you could just write it. I mean, you could just put here 10 and that's it, and it works. But if not, if you decide that it's going to be weekly or something like that, you could define the criteria here. And as soon as the system identifies that there is any duplication, you could configure here who is going to be notified. So you could define here that as soon as the system identifies something, let's send me an email, in this case to me. Okay, so after that, you just need to click on next. The system is going to confirm the information that you just provide, and after that, it's going to be finished, and the job is going to be scheduled. So it's pretty simple and it's really useful. Okay, I'm not going to create it, but that's the process. Okay, after that, here in our guide, we have bulk record deletion. This is a really powerful functionality, but it's something that you need to use really careful. Because if you create a job with the I mean with the, I mean with some criteria that are not the right ones, you could do a mess. I mean, you could delete information, and after that, you could be just running with that. So the idea is that try to delete the information without with a specific criteria. I mean, totally conscious, and it's something really simple to use. But as I said, it's something that if you don't use properly, you could create a disaster in your system. So, and after I will talk about this URL. So basically, to create a Databal process or a bulk record deletion, you just need to click here, bulk record deletion, and you could configure what are the records that you want to delete. To start using this functionality, I suggest you try to use the advanced settings first at the advanced find. I mean, try to understand how the advanced find works because it's the same model, it's the same yeah, the same process. So you just need to click here on new. The system is going to tell you, okay, what information you want to delete. So let's say that I'm going to be deleting, let's say that I'm going to delete some tasks. Now let's say that I want to delete tasks that are really old. So probably I could say, okay, let's delete the information that the last modify on was, I mean, let's just say that it's older than, let's say older than 2 years. You could say something like that. I mean, I mean, and it depends of your business because I don't know if for you or for your company the information that is there for more than 2 years is important or not. At the task with more than 2 years are important or not. I have no idea. But my suggestion is try to delete the information that you don't require, because the CRM start increasing the size, and after that, I mean, you could just be without space, or you could be just paying additional storage without any need. So my suggestion is try to keep your system with the information that you require. So you could define the criteria, and after I just click on next. Again, define the name that that is related to. In my case, I put my company name or my initial, I mean my acronym. I call here bull. I'm gonna say bully lead task uh, older than 2 years, something like that. I mean something that when you read it, you immediately know what is that. Again, try to define a process at night. Don't execute these processes during the day, because you are going to affect the performance of the instance. So it's not a good idea. Try to execute this at the day. After that, you could define, okay, let's do this every 6 months or every. I mean, my suggestion is try to don't use large periods, because the process is going to take more time. So let's do it every month. Every month I'm going to be reviewing that, and I'm going to be deleting that information. If the process, as soon as the process finish, please notify someone, please notify me or something like that. You just need to click on next. The system is going to validate information, and if you click on submit, you're going to be creating the process, okay? As soon as you create the process is going to be scheduled immediately, and you could see here the process recurring bool. You could see here all the processes that are automatically deleting information. By default, the CRM include most of them, I mean, some of them, at least 15, but you could create your own. This is really important. And the website that I include here, and I really want to recommend you that, is, and read it. It's pre-op storage space. It's a Microsoft website that recommend how to delete the information, what's the implication of delete the information, what are the type of information, or what are the type of storage that your instance manage, because your storage work with file storage, with log storage, with database storage. And it's going to explain you how to reduce the storage for each of them. So this is really useful. I usually do all this process for my client. I mean, for all of customers, we do this because it's a really good suggestion, and doesn't take much time for do that. Let me probably I could uh, let me see if I can just send you this URL. Yeah. Okay. So that's how to schedule the delete process. Or yeah, the process for automatic delete. The next one is going to be the data maps. What are your data maps? Um, this functionality manage the different mapping that we have made in the system. What it means? Every time that, I mean, if you are importing information from an Excel file, the Excel file is a file that you generate from the CRM. I mean, if you generate a template from the CRM, you just fill it out the template and you just want to import again the file. You don't need to do, you, you don't need to do a map, because the map is already in the Excel file, okay? But if you decide that you want to import a CSV file or a different kind of file, I mean a file that you create by your own, you need to create a map. Okay, because you need to let the CRM knows where exactly you are importing. So let's try to do the exercise. For example, here I'm in countries. Let's say that I want to let me create that. I'm going to create a CSV file just straight here, and I will explain to you how to do it. Let's say that I have a code here, and I have a name here, and I have here an additional code. For example, this one. And let's say that I have any country. Okay, so let me try to save this. I'm going to save this directly in the desktop, and I will use, let's say that I'm going to put countries, and it's going to be a CSV file. That's a way to create a CSV file. You could do it directly in the Excel file. I mean, you could just create Excel file, and after that, save as a CSV, and that's it. So now I want to import that information here to countries. So my usual process, I mean, you could do it in many different ways. You could just come here to countries and import. You could see here import from CSV, or you could come here to import and do it directly from here. My suggestion is do it directly from here. And the reason is that as soon as you start a process, you could see here the progress. And you cannot do that in this way. So here I'm going to click in import information. You could just drag and drop the file if you want. Let me, well, sometimes it's kind of slow. Let's wait a moment. But the idea is that as soon as this screen appears, I could just transfer the file. I mean, I could put the file here. Actually, file is here. So I could transfer the file, put the file here, click on next. And now the system is going to say, okay, I don't know the file because it's not usually Excel template. If you download the Excel template from the system and fill it out on something else, this screen is not going to appear. But the system doesn't identify what kind of files it's receiving, so it's going to ask you for some information, and it's going to tell you, okay, did you have a data map? Okay, the answer is no. So that's why we need to create one. So the first thing is that it's going to ask you what kind of information you are trying to import. Let's say that it's going to be country. And the system is going to tell you, okay, what are the information? So I already defined the names with the same name, so it's going to be mapped directly. But if not, you need to define here what should happen. So for example, area code, I didn't include that, so it's going to be without any mapping. But if you have additional information here, you need to map that. Okay, you need to click on next. You need to click on next. And after that, here, you could define a data map name. So you could define, let's say, import countries. As soon as, sorry, it's my bad. As soon as you do that, we'll click on submit. The process is going to start, of course, because I am importing information. It's going to be here. And you could see here that already it's parsing, it's transforming the information. And after that, it's going to be importing the information. And if everything is well, it's going to say, okay, success. So you could come here and you could just see the information here. Okay. I didn't include any area code, so that's why the same appeared. Okay. So if we go back to the data maps that I mentioned before, you could see here the data map that we just created. I mean, I could see here the data map that I just created. I could see the information here. I could delete the data map if I don't want to use it anymore, but I cannot edit the data map here. And actually, I cannot create the data map here because, as you can see, it's a process. It basically is just a wizard. Import countries. This is the one that we just create. You could open here, but it's not going to show you much. It's going to just show your name and when did you create that and something like that. But it's not going to show you or what is the specific mapping that you want to use. You could export this, but it's going to be an XML and it's kind of difficult to understand. So the idea is that as soon as you create a data map, you could come here and delete if you don't need anymore, or if you want to replace or something like that. But usually it's something that is just for review what are the data maps that you have. Okay, so it's kind of not too useful functionality, but again, let me see that. If you want to import, let's try to import the file again. I want to show you something. If you want to import the file again with additional countries, for example, you could define again, but here it's going to appear here, customized data map. So you could select here, and you don't need to map again because everything is already configured. So here you just need to click on next, and that's it. So it's just try to save time when you want to do a mapping. That's how the data maps works. Okay. Um, okay. After that, we have the imports functionality. That is the functionality that I just showed you. I mean, you could click here. You could click here in directly in data maps. You could go to imports, and you could see here all the information that we previously import. I mean, usually everything is just completed, or everything is submitted, or everything is okay. But there are some scenarios, like for example this one, when you try to import information and I mean it's completed because at the end just just end, but the information was not totally important. So as you can see here, I tried to import 35 records, but it was just 10 correct and 25 incorrect or with errors. So and again, you could see there is a lot of information like that. So uh, what you can see, what you can do here is that, for example, if you wanna try clicking here, you could see here, I mean, a lot of information based on the results and based of the process. But if you could click here on failures, you're going to see here what exactly happened and in what line. So you could see here, okay, in the row number 16, there is a column with the name regarding. I mean, the column here was regarding, and the regarding has this information. But when the system tried to identify that regarding, couldn't identify it. So it's something that the system cannot try to import. So that this is really useful because you could immediately know what's the issue. You could export the errors the errors post, so you could correct that and try it again. And you could see here all the success records that you I mean that you completed successful. So that's really useful because if you are trying to import information and you need to know what exactly is happening, you will see here all the details and all the elements that probably you need to solve. Usually are the same errors. I mean, usually it's lookup reference because you are trying to include some information that doesn't exist in context or accounts or whatever. The format number or the length, or I mean, the errors are common. So you could just probably solve it quickly. Okay, that's the import. I mean, and let me show you something before. Sorry. If you came here, you could click on import again. You could import from Excel or import from CSV as well. And it's going to show you a different one, but again, you could just select the file, the same, click on next. You could define if you want to activate duplicate detection or not. It's going to show you something similar. It's going to allow you to review the mapping. I mean, you could define a mapping here. If you already have the mapping, like the ones that we already created, you could select the mapping here. But if not, you could do it by yourself. So you could define, okay, let's map it in this way. And after that, you could just finish and process the import. If you want to delete a mapping that is already created here, you could just here and that's it. That's the new way to do it. Usually, most of the people use this one because it was the original one, but now it's possible to do it directly from the instance with almost all information and with almost all the steps that you have in the previous way. Okay. Okay. After that, we have here. Let me see. We have templates for data import. Okay, there are multiple ways to download the template for data import. Uh, Let me try to explain all of them. The first one is going to be just clicking here in data management and click on templates for data import. Okay, so you could select here, let's say, an account, and you could download, and the Excel file is going to be there. Okay, it's going to be, I mean, it's pretty simple. That's the first way to do it. The second way to do it is going to be, let me do something first, sorry. Okay, the second way to do it is probably, you could come here, you could click on the instance directly, for example, import from Excel, uh, sorry, sorry, Excel template. You could download the Excel template here, okay? Uh, you could export the Excel files. I mean, you could export the information and just add the recurse. Okay, the system is not going to modify the previous one if you don't modify them. The system is not going to modify them. But it's a way, an easy way to download the template. I mean, you could just click here, and the system is going to download the template, and you could just fill it out. Okay, so what I did here a moment ago, it was that I download the account template. That was the one that I just download. And as you can see here, and it's something that is not quite good, is that by default the CRM includes all the fields. And when I say all the fields are the out of the box fields and your own fields. I mean, if you create custom fields are going to be here for sure, but additionally the out of the box fields are going to be here as well. So if you are working with a customer or if you are trying to upload information, that's going to be, I mean, this is a big file, so it's quite not easy to define how to import information. So my suggestion, or what I usually do, is that I download the template after came here to accounts, for example. I open the form, I see the fields that we are using at the moment, because usually we don't use all of them. And I just delete the fields, delete the columns that I am not going to be using. It doesn't represent any issue. I mean, if you define that you are not going to be using the ticketer symbol, you could just delete it. And you could do your own template with the columns. I mean, you could leave the columns that you need in your template. That's the easy way, for me, it's the best way to do it, because you don't need to be aware of the other fields or the other columns. So just leave it the ones that you want, and after that, just fill it out and after that, just import the file in the same way that I explained you. Just come in here and import information. That's the simple way to do it, and the best way, I think. Okay, the next one is going to be the fields translations. This is something that I don't know if some of you are going to be using, but I want to explain you, of course, that when you install or when you configure your CRM instance, by default, you define a language for the instance. So if you came here, let me show you that. I don't know if you are aware of that. But here in I think that is business management. No. Administration management. So when you install your CRM, the CRM includes one language by default. Okay. But you could install more than one. You could install Spanish, you could install German, you could install any language that you wanted. But there are many things that you have to keep in mind when you are trying to do that. Here you could define the language that are implemented or that are available in your instance. The first thing is that when you add the language, it takes a long time. Sometimes probably could be half hour or something like that, but it's really slow. So the first thing is that if you add the language, the information that is going to be changing is going to be the labels. So for example, if you install Spanish, so the information that is going to be changing is going to be this, the labels or the name of the fields. But of course, the information that is included here is going to be in the original language. Okay, and additionally, if you have, for example, I think that in leads, if you have fields like, for example, let me see if I can see one of them. No, there are some fields like are like, for example, this one, lead source. The options that you are going to have here are going to continue in the original language. Okay, so if the original language is English, these options are going to be in English. So the information that is going to be changing is going to be just the labels. Okay, so what happened? If you install, for example, Spanish, you could come here and enter to personalization settings, and you could define the languages. You could define, okay, I want my user interface in a different language. So you could select here Spanish or whatever, and you could define here the help language again in the language that you prefer. You could do that, but the system is just going to change the out of the box fields. So what it means is that if you create a custom field, let's say a number of pets, something like that, if you configure a specific field for your business, and as soon as you change to the new language, as soon as you change to Spanish, for example, the name of the label is going to be in English. I mean, the system is not going to translate that. So what can I do? So the thing that you could do is that you could come here to data management. You could export the field translation. The system is going to export like an XML file with all the fields in the system, and it's going to allow you to change that. I mean, you could change the translation directly, something that you need to do by yourself. And after that, you could come here and import field translation again. Okay. Some things that you have to keep in mind. The first one is that please try to do it carefully, because if you don't do that in the right way, you could just change labels that you don't need it. So that's my first suggestion. And the second one, at least that's my suggestion, try to don't change labels in the out of the box entities, because I mean, for example, if you change this lead source, if you want to say like origin, something like that, as soon as Microsoft update version is going to replace your label, because it's an out of the box field. It happens to me like twice, I don't know, sometimes. So don't do that. If you want to change this label, change directly in the customization way, but not like using the translation way, because it's not going to be always the good way to do it. Okay, so for this functionality, you just need to export. It's not going to ask you anything. It's just click on OK. It's going to download the file, and after that, as soon as you fill it out the file, sorry, you could click on import, and the system is going to allow you to do like an import file, and it's going to update the information directly in your system. I don't use this functionality much. Probably I use it 2 or 3 times, but it's something that you could do for sure. So you could click here, import file translations, and you could select the file that you are going to be using for that operation. And after that, it's going to be just okay, and that's it. Okay, it's a really simple functionality, but as I said, something that you probably need to read and do it with the most possible careful. Okay, well, basically, those are the topics that I want to share with you today. As usually, this is a trial instance. It's not kind of trial. It's more like, uh, well, it's trial, but it's something that is not going to expire. So that's why I'm thinking that probably it's not trial. It's an instant that is available for you. You could just go there with this user and with this password, and you could do your own test. You could, I mean, the idea is to try by yourself. Try to validate the information that I just provide. And if you have any question, or if you identify that is something that is not totally clear, or that you want to have additional information or something like that, just send me an email, and I will be answering you as soon as possible. The idea is that we should share the information, we should share the knowledge, and so if you have any question, just let me know, and I will help you as soon as I can. Okay. I really appreciate your time, and I hope to see you next time. Okay, thanks a lot.